At this point in time, we have our sponsor, the representative of Civicus here present, the person who is behind everything that you see here today, Mr. Benjamin Tonga, is going to share a word with us. Thank you very much.
How many of you felt like you're watching African? Thank you. Like you said, my name is Benjamin Tonga. I work with Civicus as campaigns officer for Freedom of Peaceful Assembly. But before I dive into what I want to share with you, I would first of all like us to take a minute of silence or some few seconds just to acknowledge human rights defenders who are not here present with us. Majority of them are languishing in jail. A lot of them have lost their lives, and they cannot be present with us to enjoy the grandiose occasions like this. So let's take a few seconds to recognize human rights defenders all across the world. All right, thank you very much. I would also like to use this opportunity to also recognize a few human rights defenders that I know who are also present here in the hall. Before working with Civicus, I worked for so many years also with the Center for Human Rights and Democracy in Africa. And during that time, I had several colleagues who put their lives on the line, who did enormous work to defend the rights of others, especially within the context of the Anglophone crisis. I see here that we have our project manager at that time, Mr. Ekole Bazil. Mr. Ekole Bazil took several initiatives to write several projects, with some of our biggest donors being Osiwa, with the United Nations and a lot of other organizations. And with Mr. Ekole Bazil, we carried out several projects to shine a spotlight on human rights defenders and to celebrate, the plight of others who are suffering from human rights violations. Just seated next to Mr. Bazil is Akem Kevin, who is the human rights officer at the Center for Human Rights and Democracy in Africa. And just right in front of me, there is also Mr. Veye Bruno. Mr. Veye Bruno is a graphic designer and a communication expert. You would ask yourself what a graphic designer would probably be doing in a human rights organization, but all of the creative content that we share out there, most of them were done by Mr. Bruno, so a hand of applause for him also. And also to celebrate, I see a couple of others in the hall. I would not want to waste your time, but I see Oben Tui, I see Leslie also, who they run organizations and they do lots of actions. I also saw that there was Bochum Samuel, I think he left already. But these are people who are putting their life on the line, to preach a positive peace as opposed to the negative narrative that we have, especially within the context of the Anglophone crisis, especially within the context of gross and systematic human rights violations that we are facing here in Cameroon. So I just wanted to use this opportunity to recognize them, but also to recognize each and every one of you, right? Because you are human rights defenders in your own rights. One way or the other, you take actions within your different localities, to enhance the protection of human rights, maybe women's rights, maybe children's rights, maybe the rights of the elderly, in different phases that you are, even the rights of your kid sister or your children, that you take several measures to protect. So I will also use this opportunity to celebrate each and every one of you. A round of applause for yourselves, please. I'll share with you an inside knowledge. When we sat several months ago, I was chairing a committee with some of my other colleagues who work around the world, and we said we wanted to carry out to celebrate the second anniversary of the Standards by Witness campaign. The Standards by Witness campaign started off in 2020. It's celebrated on the 18th of July every year, which is commemorated as Nelson Mandela Day. And the reason is simply because Nelson Mandela, as a human rights defender, languished in jail, did not have anybody perhaps to run advocacy programs for him or to take creative advocacy initiatives or run campaigns, to try and liberate him from jail. And so we decided that it would be an opportunity to have a campaign like the Standards by Witness campaign that advocates for the release of human rights defenders all across the world. Prior to 2020, it was called civil society behind bars. So we're advocating for leaders of civil society organizations that have been imprisoned, but now it's called the Stand As My Witness campaign. And in my years in human rights practice, over 6 years in human rights practice, majority of the time, or more often than not, what we'll do is to hold conferences, hold workshops to television, radio stations to talk about human rights defenders. And when I shared with my colleague, my idea was to have something which is on the far left, and by the far left, I mean beyond the ordinary, right? Taking creative and innovative measures to celebrate human rights defenders. That resonates with everybody, right? I can see that a lot of you enjoyed it. We're not watching a Nigerian movie. We're actually celebrating human rights defenders. But if someone walked into this hall, the person would not, at the very first instance, think that this is a human rights event, right? But the idea is to not be tense, to have that creative and that innovative measure to celebrate human rights defenders through poetry. And this was the idea that we had. And it's not because of favoritism or because I am a Cameroonian, and that's why I decided to have State as one of the participants for this project. I think it's because I found them meritorious. We set up a committee. I was not even the one who selected them. I wasn't even reviewing applications from Sub-Saharan Africa. I was reviewing applications from Europe. So I think we have over 12 organizations that have been sponsored from all the regions, from Pakistan to Mexico. A lot of them are carrying out activities this weekend, and I'm happy that I'm able to participate here. Usually in my years in civil society, you always feel like the donor is very far up there. You feel like there are some mystery men that you really do not know. And for me, I felt like it was an opportunity to demystify this myth, to also be here in show of solidarity, because we are all human rights defenders in our rights. And I am very, very stunned and very happy that they have been able to, to unpack the severity of the issue around human rights defenders. And I'm also very glad that they were able to, marionette their activities with local content. They were able to talk about Marisa Bombala. They talked about a couple of other human rights defenders that we know. And I think that is the localization of the local content that we have, or that we can, and that resonates with everybody in the hall. And I'm very, very happy and I'm very pleased, and just as a word or two for Stage Life and for majority of youth who are here, we can always take initiatives. It does not have to be very big initiatives, right? It has to be little initiatives in our own little corners, to make a world a better place, because this world is a better place by having each and every one of us here in it, right? And we can take several measures in our own local area. You do not have to be Stage Life, you do not have to be Chada, you do not have to be a big organization to be able to take creative steps within your own local area to be able to enhance the right of human rights defenders, or to enhance the right of women. For instance, today in our community, there's a skyrocket in gender-based violence, right? In conflict that we face, there's also sexual and reproductive health rights issues around arrest of journalists, several other human rights issues that you can think about. You can take measures in your own little corner to advocate for them, running creative campaigns, advocating, sharing a Twitter message, which is a tool that we can use as youths. And I think that this is very, very important. I am very happy, and I'm sure that majority of you are also very happy. The budget that was given to Stage Life was just very small, very, very small, but they have been able to prove that they are an organization that can do a lot, and this is something which is very good. I remember he shared with me that this is actually their first international funding. And for me, I also felt like there was no need to give a project like this to Chada, for instance, Center for Human Rights. They're already a big organization, right? I did not think that it was necessary to give this project perhaps to Humanist Rights. They're already a big organization, but we can also encourage the youthful organizations that are also coming up, to make them believe that, they can also take creative steps to celebrate human rights defenders. I am very happy. I am very satisfied from a donor's perspective. I've always been in touch with him, and I've told him that he's been one of the most active organizations among the 12 organizations that were selected across the world. So my message for you as youths is that take creative actions. It might not be reflective right away, the benefit of it might not come at the very first instance, but we would have been happy that we are the generation, or we are the youths that started shining a spotlight on human rights defenders, and hoping that perhaps another generation would be the one that would water that tree, another generation would be the one that would benefit from the fruits that will fall away from that tree. But I'm sure that at the end of the day, we'll always be happy and grateful that, we are the ones who started it, and we can always start from that glory. So thank you very much, Stage Life, and thank you to each and everyone who made up time on a Sunday afternoon like this to join us. Thank you.